Jeff Beck was a guitar visionary who could make 6 strings sound like an entire orchestra. But his genius came with a price, an unforgiving perfectionism that made him despise musicians he considered sellouts, frauds, and artistic compromises waiting to happen.
Who in this sort of rock era, apart from Little Richard, and I suddenly had thought this amazing idea of the Screaming Jay Hawkins song.
Welcome to another episode of Offstage Tales, where today we're exploring the cerebral world of Jeff Beck and the 6 bands that triggered his most withering contempt. The innovative mastermind behind revolutionary techniques and boundary-pushing instrumentals was infamous for his impossibly high standards.
It wasn't. It was like, what the hell am I going to do tomorrow, you know? Get a job at the post office or something, you know?
Standards that left many famous acts in his musical crosshairs. Most guitarists play what's expected, Beck once observed to a journalist in 1978. I play what's necessary even if nobody understands it yet. That philosophy put him at odds with countless musicians who chose popularity over progress. From studio trickery to formulaic compositions, Beck's disgust with these bands wasn't just about different musical approaches, it was about fundamental disagreements over what guitar music should accomplish. These conflicts revealed a man who valued innovation above everything else, including commercial success and peer approval. So prepare for some intellectually brutal takedowns and get ready to see rock history through the eyes of one of its most demanding perfectionists. Because when Jeff Beck decided you were musically bankrupt, he had the technical skills to prove it and the artistic credibility to make it stick. 6. Boston. Launching our countdown at number 6 is a conflict that exposed Beck's purist philosophy: Boston. His disdain for Tom Scholz's multi-platinum machine wasn't about their melodies. It was about watching studio wizardry mask what he considered fundamental musical inadequacies that would be exposed the moment they stepped on stage. The irritation reportedly began in 1976, when Boston's debut album dominated radio with its layered guitar sound. According to former Epic Records producer Bob Ezrin, Beck listened to the record once and told him, "This is what happens when engineers become more important than musicians. They've built a beautiful lie that falls apart under live conditions."
Your band is great, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Narada, I've always thought he was a suitably...
What bothered Beck wasn't their success, but their methods. While Beck was pushing his instruments to their absolute limits through pure technique and innovative playing, Boston was achieving massive sales through what Beck reportedly called technological crutches and studio magic that compensates for limited actual ability. Real guitar work should be reproducible on stage without a team of technicians, Beck told Guitar Player in 1977, expressing his belief that authentic musicianship couldn't depend on production tricks. The philosophical gap widened when both artists were being compared as guitar innovators. At a 1978 industry conference, witnesses claim Beck refused to participate in a panel discussion that included Scholz, later telling organizers, "I don't debate music with people who confuse engineering with artistry." Scholz seemed unaware of Beck's criticism, later praising his technical abilities in interviews. But for Beck, Boston represented everything wrong with modern rock, prioritizing commercial appeal over musical authenticity and hiding behind technology instead of developing genuine instrumental mastery. 5. Foreigner. At number 5, we uncover Beck's disgust with calculated commercialism, Foreigner.
You know that you are cold as ice.
His contempt for Mick Jones's arena rock formula wasn't about their chart performance. It was about watching a fellow British musician abandon artistic exploration for what Beck saw as shameless American market manipulation. The disappointment reportedly peaked in 1977 when Foreigner's debut album achieved massive U.S. success through radio-friendly arrangements. According to former Atlantic Records executive Jerry Greenberg, Beck studied their approach with growing dismay, telling him, "Mick's taken everything dangerous about rock music and made it safe for suburban consumption. It's musical betrayal disguised as international success."
Not really, no. I don't think so. I think they'd just leave well alone, you know. I thought, well, maybe if they are.
What disgusted Beck wasn't their professionalism, but their predictability. While Beck was constantly experimenting with unconventional techniques and refusing to repeat himself, Foreigner was achieving platinum status through what Beck reportedly called assembly line rock music and corporate anthems designed by focus groups instead of inspiration. True musicians follow their instincts, not market research, Beck told Circus magazine in 1979, criticizing what he viewed as Foreigner's calculated approach to songwriting. The contempt deepened when both artists were touring American arenas simultaneously. At a 1980 backstage encounter, witnesses claim Beck avoided Jones completely, later explaining to his crew, "I won't validate someone who's turned rock rebellion into office work." Jones seemed puzzled by Beck's coldness, later calling him incredibly talented but difficult in interviews. But for Beck, Foreigner represented artistic prostitution, British musicians abandoning their creative heritage to manufacture American-style entertainment that prioritized commercial success over musical integrity and innovation. Fourth journey. Number 4 brings us to Beck's technology anxiety war journey.
Always another show, singing all night.
His frustration with the San Francisco band wasn't about Neil Sean's guitar skills. It was about watching synthesizers and keyboards gradually dominate arrangements where guitar should have remained the primary voice. The concern reportedly escalated in 1981 when Journey's Escape album showcased Jonathan Cain's keyboard-heavy productions. According to former Columbia Records engineer Roy Haley, Beck analyzed their sound obsessively, telling him, "They're pushing guitar into the background to make room for machines. Neil's a capable player, but he's letting computers steal his spotlight." What alarmed Beck wasn't their commercial achievement, but their instrumental hierarchy. While Beck was developing new guitar techniques to expand the instrument's expressive range, Journey was achieving arena dominance through what Beck reportedly called synthesizer dependency and electronic arrangements that treat guitar like a supporting actor instead of the star.
And they played this magnificent rendition. I went, right, that's the end of that. and then I foolishly...
Guitar built rock music, and now bands are replacing it with programmed sounds, Beck told International Musician in 1982, expressing his fears about technology displacing human musicianship. The anxiety intensified when other rock bands began copying Journey's keyboard-dominated approach. At a 1983 Music Equipment Expo, witnesses claim Beck walked out during a synthesizer demonstration, later telling his guitar tech, "If musicians stop believing in their instruments, the instruments will stop believing in them." Schoen seemed unaware of Beck's concerns, later expressing admiration for his innovative techniques. But for Beck, Journey represented a dangerous precedent, allowing electronic convenience to replace the physical challenge and emotional directness that made guitar music genuinely powerful and irreplaceable. 3. Yes. Number 3 reveals Beck's most intellectually charged battle, Yes. His criticism of the progressive rock titans wasn't about their technical abilities. It was about watching Steve Howe and company turn guitar playing into an academic exercise that prioritized theoretical complexity over emotional communication. The philosophical clash reportedly intensified throughout the early 1970s when Yes was being praised for their intricate compositions. According to former Atlantic Records producer Eddie Offord, Beck attended a Yes concert and left during the second song, later telling him, "They're playing music like they're solving mathematical equations. Where's the soul? Where's the instinct that makes guitar playing human?" What frustrated Beck wasn't their skill level, but their approach to musicianship. While Beck was channeling raw emotion through innovative techniques that came from intuitive exploration, Yes was achieving critical acclaim through what Beck reportedly called scholarly showmanship and compositions that sound like conservatory exercises instead of rock and roll expression. "Music should come from the gut, not from textbooks," Beck told Melody Maker in 1973, defending his belief that technical virtuosity meant nothing without emotional authenticity. The divide became unbridgeable when progressive rock fans began elevating complex arrangements over passionate performance. Howe seemed genuinely respectful of Beck's innovations, later calling him inspirational in interviews. But for Beck, yes represented the death of rock's primal power, replacing spontaneous emotional expression with calculated intellectual demonstrations that impressed minds while leaving souls completely untouched. 2. Pink Floyd. At number 2, we discover Beck's most personal artistic grievance, Pink Floyd. His resentment toward David Gilmour and the Atmospheric Masters wasn't about their creativity.
Seen them at the Speakeasy Club in London.
Yeah.
But because it was so dark in there and they were all prismatic.
It was about watching guitar technique become secondary to mood and watching individual brilliance dissolve into collective soundscapes that buried virtuosity beneath concepts. The frustration reportedly deepened throughout the mid-1970s when Pink Floyd's conceptual albums overshadowed guitar-focused rock. According to former Harvest Records executive Malcolm Jones, Beck studied their approach with increasing irritation, telling him, "David's got serious chops, but he's hiding them behind all this atmospheric nonsense. Guitar should lead, not provide background texture for philosophical concepts." What annoyed Beck wasn't their innovation, but their priorities. While Beck was pushing guitar technique into uncharted territories through solo showcases and instrumental exploration, Pink Floyd was achieving legendary status through what Beck reportedly called guitar as wallpaper and individual talent sacrificed for group meditation sessions. "Great guitarists should be heard, not dissolved into conceptual soup," Beck told Guitar World in 1975, defending his belief that instrumental mastery deserved spotlight recognition rather than atmospheric integration. The artistic philosophy gap became permanent when critics began praising Pink Floyd's restraint over Beck's technical displays. Gilmour seemed unaware of Beck's hostility, later expressing admiration for his technical innovations. But for Beck, Pink Floyd represented wasted potential, brilliant musicians choosing to hide their abilities behind conceptual pretensions instead of celebrating individual instrumental excellence. First, Led Zeppelin. And finally, at number 1, we reach the most explosive revelation of all, Led Zeppelin. Yes, the legendary rock gods reportedly earned Jeff Beck's ultimate fury in what became the most bitter and personal betrayal in guitar history. The devastation reportedly began in 1969, when Led Zeppelin's debut album achieved massive success using techniques that Beck had pioneered during his Yardbirds era. According to former manager Peter Grant, Beck watched their rise with growing rage, telling him, "Jimmy took everything I developed and marketed it as his own innovation. He's built a career on my experimental work and gets credit for inventing what I created." What destroyed Beck wasn't their musical ability, but the theft of his legacy. While Beck had spent years developing revolutionary guitar approaches during his brief Yardbirds tenure, Led Zeppelin was achieving worldwide domination through what Beck reportedly called stolen innovations and my techniques repackaged for mass consumption without acknowledgement. Page remained diplomatically silent about Beck's accusations throughout his career. But for Beck, Led Zeppelin represented the ultimate artistic injustice. Watching his experimental breakthroughs become someone else's legendary reputation while he remained credited as merely talented rather than genuinely revolutionary. So there you have it. Even guitar geniuses nurse bitter grudges. Was Jeff Beck protecting innovation or consumed by jealousy? Which rivalry surprised you most? Subscribe now and share your insights below.